The alarm clock buzzed for the third time as Sophia's hand finally emerged from beneath the thin blanket to silence it. Morning light filtered through the faded curtains of the small apartment she shared with her grandmother in the east side of town. Unlike the fancy houses across the river with their manicured lawns, their building had peeling paint and a temperamental elevator that worked only when it felt like it. "Sophie, you up?" Her grandmother's voice carried from the tiny kitchen where the familiar smell of coffee already filled the air. At 62, Rosa Martinez still worked 2 jobs, mornings at the hospital cafeteria and evenings cleaning offices downtown. "Coming, abuela," Sophia called back, quickly changing into her school clothes. She had carefully selected her outfit the night before, her cleanest jeans and a blue sweater without any obvious patches. Today wasn't just any school day. Today was important. In the kitchen, her grandmother stood at the stove, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a neat bun. Despite the early hour and the long day ahead, Rosa's eyes sparkled with the same determination that had carried her through raising Sophia after her parents' accident 10 years ago. "I made you eggs," Rosa said, sliding a plate across their small table. "You need strength today," Sophia smiled, touched by her grandmother's thoughtfulness. They couldn't afford much, but Rosa always made sure Sophia never went hungry. "Thanks, abuela. You didn't have to get up early just for me." Rosa waved away her concern. "Nonsense. Today is your big day. The talent show sign-up, yes?" Sophia nodded, butterflies instantly taking flight in her stomach. For weeks she'd been gathering courage to put her name down for the annual Westridge High Talent Show. It wasn't just any school event. Music industry people would be there, real scouts looking for fresh talent. "What if I'm not good enough?" Sophia whispered, voicing the fear that had kept her awake most of the night. Her grandmother's worn hands covered hers. "Mi cielo, when you sing, even the birds stop to listen. You have a gift." She tapped Sophia's chest right above her heart. "In here. And gifts are meant to be shared." After breakfast, Sophia helped with the dishes before heading to the bathroom, her practice studio. The small space had decent acoustics, and she'd spent countless hours in there singing while the shower ran to mask the sound from neighbors. Today, she hummed softly as she brushed her teeth, warming up her vocal cords. In her bedroom, Sophia pulled out the dress she'd been working on. It was originally a thrift store find, plain and a bit outdated, but over the past month she'd carefully sewn tiny sequins onto it, transforming it bit by bit. She couldn't afford a new outfit, but she was determined not to look out of place among the wealthy kids who dominated these events. The dress still needed work, but there would be time before the actual show, if she made it through auditions. Sophia tucked her application form carefully into her backpack, along with the sheet music she'd printed at the library. The 20-minute walk to school gave Sophia time to practice in her head. She'd chosen Rise Up, a song that spoke to her own struggles and dreams. The lyrics about rising despite the odds felt like they were written just for her. Westridge High was a study in contrasts. While technically serving the entire town, everyone knew the invisible dividing line. The West Side kids arrived in shiny cars, wore designer clothes, and had private tutors. East Side kids like Sophia took the bus or walked, wore whatever they could afford, and worked after-school jobs instead of joining clubs. As Sophia approached the school gates, she spotted Tyler Chen, one of the few West Siders who acknowledged her existence. He was unloading sound equipment from his father's luxury SUV. "Hey, Sophia, you signing up today?" he asked, struggling with a speaker. "Here, let me help," she offered, grabbing the other side. "And yeah, I'm going to try," Tyler grinned. "Awesome. I've heard you humming in math class." "You've got pipes." Sophia blushed. "Thanks. What about you? Keyboard again?" "Yep. Dad bought me a new synthesizer for my birthday. Cost more than a used car, but whatever." He caught himself glancing awkwardly at Sophia, who definitely couldn't afford either. "I mean, it's just a thing, you know? Talent's what matters." The morning classes dragged by, each minute stretching like an hour. Sophia could hardly focus on trigonometry, while her mind kept rehearsing her audition. During lunch, while other students gathered in their usual cliques in the cafeteria, Sophia slipped into the empty music room. The piano stood in the corner, tempting her. She looked around, making sure she was alone, then sat down and played a few notes. She wasn't as skilled as some students who'd had lessons since childhood, but she could accompany herself well enough. Taking a deep breath, She began to sing softly, her voice growing stronger with each note. This room, with its proper acoustics instead of bathroom tiles, made her voice sound different, fuller somehow. That was beautiful. Sophia jumped, spinning around to find Mr. Rivera, the music teacher, standing in the doorway. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I didn't mean to—" No, he interrupted with a warm smile. "That's what this room is for." "I didn't know you could sing like that, Sophia." She looked down, embarrassed. "I'm thinking of trying out for the talent show." "You absolutely should." His enthusiasm was genuine. "Sign-ups are after school in the auditorium. I'll be there. I'm one of the judges this year." The rest of the day passed in a blur. When the final bell rang, Sophia's heart pounded so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. She made her way to the auditorium, clutching her application form. The scene inside was intimidating. A long table had been set up where Ms. Winters, the drama teacher, sat with a few other faculty members and 2 senior students. A line had already formed, mostly West Side kids with professional-looking portfolios and confident smiles. In the corner, some students were already warming up. A girl with perfectly styled hair was doing vocal exercises with what looked like a personal coach beside her. Another student had brought in a violin that probably cost more than Rosa's yearly salary. Sophia swallowed hard and joined the end of the line, trying to look like she belonged. The girl in front of her, dressed in clothes that still had price tags higher than Sophia's weekly grocery budget, turned and gave her a curious once-over. "Are you in the right place?" she asked, not unkindly, just confused. "This is for the talent show." "I know," Sophia replied, lifting her chin slightly. "I'm signing up too." "Oh." The girl seemed genuinely surprised. "What do you do?" "I sing." "Cool. Voice lessons with who?" "Just myself, I guess." Sophia's cheeks burned. "In the bathroom, mostly." Instead of the mockery she expected, the girl looked impressed. "For real? That's kind of awesome, actually. I've had lessons since I was 6, and my coach says I still can't hit a high F properly." She extended her hand. "I'm Lily, by the way." Sophia. As the line moved forward, Sophia observed Ms. Winters' interactions with each student. Some received enthusiastic welcomes, others polite acknowledgement. When Lily stepped up, Ms. Winters smiled warmly. "Lily, wonderful to see you trying out again. Your mother mentioned you've been working with Coach Williams in New York?" "Yes, every weekend," Lily replied. "Dad flies me out Thursday nights now." When it was finally Sophia's turn, Ms. Winters' smile faded slightly. "Name?" she asked, not looking up from her papers. "Sophia Martinez." "Grade?" 11. "Prior experience?" Sophia hesitated. "None, professionally, but talent category. Vocal performance. I'll be singing Rise Up." Ms. Winters finally looked up, her expression skeptical. "That's a challenging piece. Do you have accompaniment arranged? I was hoping to use the school piano or maybe a backing track." The teacher's sigh was barely concealed. "We'll see. Auditions are tomorrow after school. Be prepared for a 2-minute performance." She took Sophia's form and placed it at the bottom of a thick stack, then looked past her to the next student. "Next." Walking home as the sun began to set, Sophia felt a mix of nerves and determination. The east side of town looked different in the golden hour. The cracked sidewalks and graffiti-marked walls softened by the warm light. A group of younger kids played basketball using a milk crate nailed to a telephone pole as a hoop. Sophia stopped to watch them for a moment. One boy, no older than 10, made an impossible shot that sailed perfectly through the makeshift basket. His friends erupted in cheers. "That was amazing," she told him. The boy grinned, missing a front tooth. "Nobody thinks I can do it 'cause I'm the smallest. But I practice every day when nobody's watching." His words echoed in Sophia's mind as she continued home. That's what she'd been doing too. Practicing when nobody was watching. Believing in her talent even when others didn't see it. By the time she reached their apartment building, Rosa was already home between shifts, preparing a simple dinner of rice and beans. "How did it go?" she asked immediately. Sophia set her backpack down. "I signed up." Rosa's face lit up. "That's my brave girl. Now tell me everything while we eat." As they sat at their small table, Sophia recounted the day's events, including her conversation with Lily and Ms. Winters' dismissive attitude. "Some people can only see what's on the outside," Rosa said wisely, "but true talent shines through, mi amor. Tomorrow you will sing with all your heart, and they will have no choice but to hear you." Later that night, Sophia stood in their bathroom, singing quietly while her grandmother slept. In the mirror, she saw not just herself, but the legacy of her family's strength, her grandmother's determination, her parents' lost dreams. Tomorrow would be her chance to be heard, to show everyone that talent didn't check bank accounts first. "I'll rise up," she sang softly to her reflection, meaning every word. Sleep didn't come easily to Sophia that night. She tossed and turned, her mind replaying different versions of tomorrow's audition. In some, she stunned everyone into silence. In others, she forgot the lyrics entirely or her voice cracked on the high notes. By the time morning came, she'd barely rested at all. "You look like you fought with your pillow all night," Rosa commented as Sophia shuffled into the kitchen. Her grandmother was already dressed in her hospital cafeteria uniform, her lunch packed in a plastic container. "Couldn't sleep," Sophia admitted, pouring herself a glass of water. "The audition's after school today." Rosa placed a gentle hand on her granddaughter's shoulder. "Nerves are good. They mean you care." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small silver pin shaped like a music note. "This was your mother's. She wore it when she sang in church. I thought maybe you could use it today." Sophia's eyes welled up as she took the pin. Her memories of her parents grew dimmer each year, but sometimes small things like this brought them back into focus. "Thanks, abuela. It's perfect." After Rosa left for work, Sophia practiced one last time, then carefully pinned her mother's silver note to her shirt. The morning passed in a haze of anxiety. During lunch, she couldn't eat, her stomach too knotted with anticipation. "You'll do great," Tyler assured her when they crossed paths in the hallway. "Just pretend you're singing in your bathroom." Sophia smiled weakly. "Thanks. Though I hope the acoustics are better in the auditorium." By the time the final bell rang, Sophia felt like she might throw up. She made her way to the auditorium where a crowd had already gathered. A sign-up sheet on the door listed the audition order. Scanning it quickly, Sophia found her name, second to last. Inside, the large space buzzed with nervous energy. Some students were doing vocal warm-ups. Others were tuning instruments or reviewing sheet music. In the front row sat the judges, Ms. Winters, Mr. Rivera, Principal Thompson, and two people Sophia didn't recognize, probably the industry scouts she'd heard about. Ms. Winters stood up with a clipboard. "Attention, everyone. We have 32 auditions to get through today, so we'll be keeping strictly to time. Each performer has 2 minutes. No exceptions, no do-overs. We'll start with Aiden Parker." A boy with perfectly styled hair and expensive clothes walked confidently to the center of the stage with his guitar. He performed a flawless cover of a pop song, his voice trained and polished. Sophia watched from the back as student after student performed. Most were good, some exceptionally so. Many mentioned private lessons, summer camps, and previous performances during their introductions. The judges smiled and nodded, occasionally making notes. Time dragged on. 1 hour turned into 2, then 3. Some students who'd finished their auditions left, but others stayed to watch. Sophia's nerves grew with each passing minute. She practiced her breathing exercises, trying to stay calm. When there were only a few people left before her turn, Sophia slipped out to the bathroom to check her appearance one last time. Her reflection showed tired eyes, but her mother's pin glinted in the harsh fluorescent light, giving her courage. As she returned to the auditorium, she overheard Ms. Winters talking to one of the scouts. "We have some exceptional talent this year. The last few are just fillers, really. We should wrap up soon." Sophia's heart sank. Fillers? Was that how they saw her? Just someone to make up the numbers? She took her seat, trying to ignore the comment. Finally, it was the turn of the student before her. Lily, the friendly girl from yesterday. She performed beautifully, her classical training evident in every note. The judges applauded enthusiastically when she finished. "Sophia Martinez?" Ms. Winters called out, checking her watch with a frown. Sophia stood up, her legs shaky. "Here, you're up. 2 minutes." Taking a deep breath, Sophia walked onto the stage. The lights felt hot and bright, making it hard to see the audience clearly. She approached the microphone, painfully aware of her simple clothes and lack of formal training compared to the others. "Hi, I'm Sophia Martinez. I'll be singing Rise Up." She handed her backing track to the student managing the sound system. As the music began, she closed her eyes briefly, channeling all her emotions into the song. Her voice started soft, a bit uncertain, but grew stronger with each line. By the chorus, she was fully immersed in the performance, hitting the powerful notes with surprising strength. The words about rising despite pain and struggle felt deeply personal, and she sang them with genuine emotion. As she approached the final chorus, something strange happened. The backing track suddenly cut off, leaving her voice hanging alone in the sudden silence. Sophia faltered for a second, confused, but then continued a cappella, refusing to stop. Her voice filled the auditorium, raw and powerful without any accompaniment. When she finished, she opened her eyes, breathing hard. The silence that followed felt deafening. Then Mr. Rivera started applauding, joined by a few students in the audience. But Ms. Winters was already shuffling papers, not looking up. "Thank you, Sophia," she said, mispronouncing her name. Next and last, Vincent Taylor. "It's Sophia," she corrected quietly. But Ms. Winters had already moved on. As Sophia left the stage, Mr. Rivera gave her a thumbs up, but the other judges were already focused on Vincent, who was setting up his elaborate drum kit with the help of two friends. Lily caught up with Sophia as she returned to her seat. "That was amazing," she whispered. "What happened with your track?" "I don't know," Sophia said, still shaken. "It just cut off." "Well, you handled it like a pro." "I would have freaked out." Vincent's audition was loud and technically impressive. When he finished, all the judges applauded enthusiastically. "Thank you, everyone," Ms. Winters announced when the applause died down. "Results will be posted tomorrow morning. Those selected will need to attend rehearsals starting next week." As students began to file out, Sophia approached the sound booth. "Hi, do you know what happened with my track?" "It cut off halfway through." The student technician looked uncomfortable. "Yeah, sorry about that. Ms. Winters signaled me to stop it." "I thought it was planned." Sophia's stomach dropped. "She asked you to cut my music?" "She said you were running overtime." He glanced nervously toward the judges, who were now in a huddle discussing the performances. "But you weren't, actually. You still had like 40 seconds left." Stunned, Sophia thanked him and walked away. Outside the auditorium, she leaned against the wall, trying to process what had happened. It wasn't just in her head, she really was being treated differently. "Hey!" She looked up to see one of the unfamiliar judges, a young woman with kind eyes. "You're Sophia, right? That was some recovery when your track cut out. Really impressive." "Thank you," Sophia said, surprised by the acknowledgement. "I'm Dana, by the way. I work for Summit Records." She handed Sophia a business card. "Where do you train?" Sophia's cheeks flushed. "Nowhere really, just at home." Dana's eyebrows rose. "Seriously? You have a natural talent then. Raw but real." She glanced back toward the auditorium, then lowered her voice. "Look, I don't usually do this, but I'm going to give you some advice. This show, it's not always about pure talent. There's politics involved." "You mean because I'm not from the West Side?" Sophia asked bluntly. Dana smiled sadly. "Let's just say some decisions get made before auditions even happen. But don't let that stop you. Talent finds a way." She nodded toward the exit. "I should get back. Good luck, Sophia." Walking home in the fading light, Sophia felt a confusing mix of emotions. Pride in her performance, anger at Ms. Winters, hope from Dana's words, and a gnawing suspicion that despite her best efforts, she wouldn't make the cut. The apartment was empty when she arrived. Rosa wouldn't be home until after 9. Sophia heated up leftover rice and beans, then sat at the kitchen table with her dinner, replaying the day's events in her mind. On a whim, she pulled out Dana's business card and studied it. Summit Records. A real music industry professional had noticed her. Maybe that was worth more than any school talent show. Her phone buzzed with a text from Lily. "Don't stress about today. Your voice is incredible. Whatever happens tomorrow, you've got serious talent." The message warmed her heart. She texted back a thank you, feeling slightly better. Later that evening, as Rosa returned home exhausted from her second job, Sophia was waiting with a cup of hot tea. "How did it go, Michelo?" Rosa asked, sinking gratefully into a chair. Sophia told her everything. The performances, the cut music, Dana's comments. Rosa listened attentively, her face darkening at the mention of Ms. Winters' behavior. "That's not right," she said firmly. "Maybe I should speak to this teacher." "No, Abuela, please," Sophia said quickly. "It would only make things worse. Besides, the results will be posted tomorrow. Maybe it doesn't even matter." Rosa took her granddaughter's hands. "It matters because you matter. Your talent matters," she pointed to the silver pin. "Your mother never got to follow her dreams. But you can. No matter what happens tomorrow, promise me you won't give up. I promise, Sophia whispered. That night, she placed Dana's business card carefully in her small jewelry box, a talisman of possibility, even if tomorrow brought disappointment. Morning came too quickly. Sophia dressed with particular care, trying to prepare herself for either outcome. She tucked her mother's pin into her pocket for luck, then left for school early, determined to check the results before the hallways filled with other students. The talent show roster was posted on the auditorium door. Sophia took a deep breath and scanned the list of 15 names. Her name wasn't there. Sophia stood frozen, staring at the talent show roster where her name should have been. Students began filling the hallway, some rushing to check the list, others already celebrating their inclusion with friends. She stepped back, not wanting anyone to see the disappointment on her face. I'm so sorry. Lily appeared beside her, looking genuinely upset. This is completely unfair. You were one of the best yesterday. Sophia forced a small smile. Congratulations on making it. Thanks, but it doesn't feel right. Everyone knows what happened with your backing track wasn't an accident. Lily hesitated. A bunch of us are thinking about saying something to Principal Thompson. Please don't, Sophia said quickly. I don't want to cause trouble. The last thing she needed was to be labeled as difficult. It's just a school show, right? But as she walked to her first class, the rejection stung deeply. It wasn't just a school show. It was supposed to be her chance. Her one opportunity to be heard by people who mattered in the music world. Throughout the day, several students approached her with sympathetic words. Even Mr. Rivera stopped her in the hallway. You deserve to be on that list, he said quietly. I want you to know I fought for you in the deliberations. Sophia thanked him, but his words offered little comfort. After school, instead of heading straight home, she found herself wandering toward the park near the river that divided the town. She sat on a bench overlooking the water, pulled out a small notebook, and began writing lyrics, something she often did to process her emotions. On the other side of town, Alexander Reed sat in his home office reviewing documents on his laptop. At 42, he had the trim build of someone who made time for exercise despite a busy schedule. His clothes were expensive but understated, the kind of quality that spoke for itself without flashy logos. 20 years ago, he'd left this same town with nothing but determination and a scholarship to a state college. Now he'd returned as the founder and CEO of NextGen Technologies, with a net worth that local gossip placed well into 9 figures. His assistant Vivian knocked on the open door. The school principal called again about the donation. He's hoping you'll attend the talent show next Friday as a special guest. Alexander sighed. Tell him I'll think about it. He'd been hesitant about making such a large donation to Westridge High. The school served both sides of town but had a reputation for catering to wealthy families. His own experience there as a scholarship student had been mixed at best. Also, Vivian continued, the community center director wants to know if you're still planning to visit this afternoon. They're excited about potentially expanding their music program. This brought a genuine smile to Alexander's face. Definitely. Block out 2 hours. I want to see what they're doing there. Later that afternoon, Alexander drove himself to the East Side Community Center in a modest electric sedan, not the flashy sports car many expected a millionaire to drive. The building was run down but clean, with colorful murals brightening its exterior walls. Inside, Director Carlos Reyes greeted him warmly. Thank you for coming, Mr. Reed. The kids are so excited to show you what they've been working on with the instruments your foundation donated last year. Alexander followed Carlos through the building, noting the worn floors and outdated facilities, but also the vibrant energy of the place. Children of various ages were engaged in different activities, homework help, art projects, and in the back room, music. We can only afford an instructor twice a week, Carlos explained. But the kids practice on their own the other days. They're dedicated. In the music room, a group of young teens were working on a song, taking turns with the limited instruments. Alexander watched them, transported back to his own youth when music had been his escape from a difficult home life. Who usually uses the piano? Alexander asked, noticing the well-worn upright in the corner. Various students, but there's one high school girl who comes in sometimes when we're not busy. She doesn't take lessons, can't afford them, but she's got a natural talent. Teaches herself by watching videos online. What's her name? Sophia Martinez. Lives with her grandmother a few blocks from here. Lovely girl. Always willing to help the younger kids. Alexander nodded, making a mental note of the name. After touring the rest of the facility, he sat down with Carlos to discuss the center's needs. By the end of their meeting, he'd committed to funding a full renovation of the music room and hiring additional instructors. "This is incredibly generous," Carlos said, clearly moved. "Music changed my life when I was growing up here," Alexander replied simply. "Every kid deserves that chance." The following day, Alexander found himself back at Westridge High, having agreed to meet with Principal Thompson about his potential donation. The principal led him on a tour of the school, highlighting recent achievements and future plans. "And of course, we're very proud of our arts program," Principal Thompson said as they approached the auditorium. "Our annual talent show is next Friday. The students are rehearsing now if you'd like to take a peek." Inside the auditorium, Ms. Winters was directing students on stage, meticulously arranging the performance order. Alexander took a seat at the back, observing quietly. The rehearsal continued for about 30 minutes before Ms. Winters called for a break. As the students dispersed, Alexander noticed a girl sitting alone in the back corner of the auditorium with a notebook, watching the rehearsal intently. Something about her focused expression caught his attention. When Ms. Winters stepped away, the girl moved closer to the stage, glancing around as if to make sure no one was watching. Then, thinking herself alone, she stepped onto the empty stage. Alexander watched as she stood in the spotlight for a moment, closed her eyes, and began to sing softly, without music. Her voice was untrained but hauntingly beautiful, filled with raw emotion that technical perfection couldn't match. The song ended abruptly when a door slammed somewhere in the building. The girl jumped, quickly gathering her things and hurrying toward the exit. "Excuse me," Alexander said to Principal Thompson. "Who was that?" The principal glanced toward the departing figure. "Oh, just one of our students. I don't recall her name offhand." Ms. Winters approached them, overhearing the question. "That's Sofia Martinez. She's not in the talent show." Her tone suggested the matter wasn't worth discussing further. "Why not?" Alexander asked directly. "She has a remarkable voice." Ms. Winters looked uncomfortable. "Well, we have limited spots and the competition was quite fierce this year. We had to make difficult choices based on overall performance quality, stage presence, and preparation." Alexander didn't miss the way Principal Thompson shifted nervously beside him. Having built a successful business, he developed a keen sense for when someone wasn't being entirely truthful. "I see," he said mildly. But his mind was working quickly, connecting dots. Sofia Martinez, the same name Carlos had mentioned at the community center. The tour continued, but Alexander was only half listening to Principal Thompson's enthusiastic descriptions of various facilities. After making vague promises about considering the donation, he left the school deep in thought. In his car, he called Vivian. "I need you to find out everything. You can about a student named Sofia Martinez at Westridge High. And I'd like to see the applications and judging notes for this year's talent show. The school probably won't share student records or internal documents," Vivian cautioned. "Tell them it's related to my potential donation. I'm interested in how they evaluate talent and make opportunities available to all students." His voice was calm but determined. By that evening, Vivian had compiled a basic profile. Sofia Martinez, 17, lived with her grandmother in the East Side housing complex. Excellent academic record despite working part-time at a local grocery store. No disciplinary issues. Had applied for the talent show but wasn't selected. The judging notes, which Principal Thompson had reluctantly provided in hopes of securing the donation, told another story. Mr. Rivera had given Sofia top marks, noting exceptional raw talent, authentic emotional connection to music. But Ms. Winters' comments read, unprofessional presentation, interrupted performance, lacks formal training, not suitable for our showcase. What really caught Alexander's attention was a note in the margin. Parent-donor considerations? It was circled twice. Parent-donor considerations, Alexander repeated, a familiar anger rising within him. 25 years ago, he'd lost a science scholarship to the superintendent's son, despite having better grades. Some things, it seemed, hadn't changed. The next morning, he arrived at the community center earlier than usual, hoping to catch Sofia. His patience was rewarded when she walked in around 4 o'clock, backpack slung over one shoulder. Carlos greeted her warmly. "Hi, Sophia. Piano room's free if you want it." "Thanks," she replied with a tired smile. "I only have about half an hour before my shift at Palmer's Grocery." "No problem. Oh, and remember that tech millionaire I told you about? He's funded those music instructor positions. We'll be able to offer free lessons soon." Sophia's face lit up. "That's amazing. The little kids will love that." Alexander watched this exchange from the hallway, struck by her genuine excitement for others rather than herself. As she headed toward the piano room, he made a decision. It was time to level the playing field. In his car, he made 3 phone calls, one to Principal Thompson, one to Dana at Summit Records, and one to his lawyer. By the time he finished, a plan was taking shape. The talent show was a week away, but that was more than enough time to change the game. 3 days before the talent show, Principal Thompson called a mandatory rehearsal for all performers. Excitement buzzed through the auditorium as students set up instruments and checked sound equipment. Ms. Winters moved through the crowd with her clipboard, directing everyone with precise instructions. "I want a full run-through today," she announced. "Our special guest donor might attend Friday's show, so everything needs to be perfect." In the back of the auditorium, Sophia sat quietly. She hadn't planned to come, but Lily had texted asking for moral support. "Please? I'm so nervous about my solo." So here she was, watching others live her dream. She'd brought her notebook, using the opportunity to jot down observations about stage presence and performance techniques. If she couldn't participate, she could at least learn. Halfway through the rehearsal, the auditorium doors opened. Principal Thompson hurried over, his face lighting up with recognition. "Mr. Reed, what a pleasant surprise. We weren't expecting you until Friday." Every head turned to see the visitor. Alexander Reed walked down the center aisle, dressed in casual clothes that somehow still looked expensive. Sophia recognized him immediately from news articles about local business leaders. "I thought I'd see how preparations are coming along," Alexander said pleasantly. "Please don't let me interrupt. I'll just observe." Ms. Winters rushed over. "Mr. Reed, what an honor. We're so grateful for your interest in our arts program. I've arranged a special seating area for you." "Thank you, but I'm fine here," Alexander replied, taking a seat in the middle of the auditorium. "I prefer to experience it as the audience will." Principal Thompson looked nervous. "Of course. We'll continue with the rehearsal then. You're in for a treat. Our students are exceptionally talented." The rehearsal resumed with Vincent's drum solo. Sophia had to admit he was skilled, though his performance felt more like a technical exercise than something with emotional depth. Aiden's guitar piece followed, then a dance number by 3 girls whose parents Sophia recognized as prominent local business owners. Throughout each performance, Alexander watched attentively, occasionally making notes on his phone. When Lily performed her classical piece, Sophia noticed him nodding appreciatively. After the 10th performer finished, Ms. Winters called for a short break. 15 minutes, everyone. When we return, we'll run through the second half." The auditorium buzzed with whispered conversations as students speculated about the millionaire's presence. Sophia remained in her seat, sketching musical notation in her notebook. Suddenly, she realized someone was standing beside her. Looking up, she found Alexander Reed studying her with curious eyes. "You're Sophia Martinez, right?" he asked, surprised. She nodded. "Yes, how did you—" "I heard you singing here the other day when you thought no one was listening." His voice was kind but direct. "You have a remarkable voice." Sophia's cheeks grew warm. "Thank you. I'm curious why you're not performing on Friday." Before she could answer, Ms. Winters appeared, looking concerned. "Mr. Reed, can I get you anything? Coffee? Water?" "Actually," Alexander said, turning to face her, "I was just asking Ms. Martinez why she isn't in the show. Her voice is extraordinary." Ms. Winters' smile tightened. "As I explained before, we had limited spots. Many talented students auditioned." "I understand." Alexander nodded, his tone pleasant but his eyes sharp. "In fact, I've reviewed all the audition notes you provided to help me decide on my donation." Principal Thompson, who had joined them, paled visibly. "You reviewed the notes?" "Yes, very illuminating." Alexander turned back to Sophia. "I believe your backing track was cut short during your audition, correct?" Sophia hesitated, aware that everyone nearby was listening. "Yes, but despite that, Mr. Rivera gave you the highest score of any vocal performer." Alexander continued. Yet you weren't selected. I found that curious. The auditorium had grown silent. Students were watching the exchange with undisguised interest. Mr. Reed, Principal Thompson said nervously, perhaps we could discuss this privately in my office. I don't think that's necessary. Alexander's voice remained calm. I'm simply trying to understand how talent is evaluated at Westridge High. After all, if I'm going to donate a significant sum to the arts program, I want to ensure it benefits all talented students, not just those with certain advantages. Ms. Winter's face flushed. I assure you our selection process is fair and based purely on merit. Then you wouldn't object to a demonstration? Alexander suggested. A demonstration? Principal Thompson echoed weakly. Alexander turned to address everyone in the auditorium. I have a proposal. Since this is a rehearsal for a school event, why not use it as a learning opportunity? In the professional arts world, auditions are often blind, judged solely on performance quality without knowing the performer's identity or background. He looked at Sophia. Would you be willing to perform your audition piece again? Right now for everyone here? Sophia's heart hammered in her chest. Every student, every judge was staring at her. Part of her wanted to run, but a stronger part, the part that had been singing in her bathroom for years, believing in her own voice, made her stand up. Yes, she said simply. I would. Ms. Winters stepped forward. This is highly irregular. We have a schedule to maintain. Consider it a special request from your potential donor, Alexander replied smoothly. Unless there's some reason you don't want to hear Ms. Martinez perform? Trapped, Ms. Winters forced a smile. Of course not. We're always happy to showcase our students' talents. Sophia walked slowly to the stage, her legs feeling strangely disconnected from her body. The spotlight felt both terrifying and right, like coming home to a place she'd only dreamed about. Do you need your backing track? The student at the sound booth called. Sophia thought for a moment. No, I'll do it a cappella. She took a deep breath, touching her mother's silver pin for courage. Then she began to sing. The first notes were soft, almost hesitant, but as the familiar lyrics flowed through her, something shifted. The auditorium disappeared. The watching eyes faded away. There was only the song, only her voice rising to fill every corner of the space with pure, raw emotion. She sang about rising up, about moving mountains, about doing what seemed impossible. And as she sang, she felt it, the power in her own voice, the years of practice in her tiny bathroom, the dreams that had never died despite every obstacle. When she hit the final note, holding it with perfect control before letting it fade into silence, the auditorium remained completely still for 3 heartbeats. Then Lily jumped to her feet, applauding wildly. Tyler joined her, then Mr. Rivera, then most of the students. Even some of the performers who might have seen her as competition were clapping, visibly moved by what they'd heard. Alexander was smiling. Principal Thompson looked stunned, and Ms. Winters stood frozen, her clipboard clutched to her chest. When the applause finally died down, Alexander spoke into the silence. I think we've all just witnessed something remarkable. He turned to Ms. Winters. Wouldn't you agree? Put on the spot, she nodded stiffly. Sophia has a unique quality to her voice. More than unique, Mr. Rivera interjected boldly. What we just heard was authentic artistry, the kind that can't be taught in lessons. Alexander faced Principal Thompson. I've been considering making a significant donation to Westridge High's arts program, but I believe strongly that true talent should be nurtured regardless of a student's economic background. He let his words hang in the air for a moment before continuing. My donation will come with one condition, that the selection process for all arts programs be truly merit-based, with a portion of funds specifically allocated to students who can't afford private lessons or expensive equipment. Principal Thompson, clearly seeing the full amount of the donation potentially slipping away, nodded quickly. Of course, Mr. Reed. We've always valued fairness and inclusion. Excellent. Alexander smiled. Then I assume there's no objection to adding Ms. Martinez to Friday's lineup? After what we've all just heard, it seems only right. Every eye turned to Ms. Winters. Backed into a corner, she forced a tight smile. We could make an adjustment to the program. Wonderful, Alexander said, as if the matter was settled. He turned to Sophia, who still stood on the stage, hardly believing what was happening. Congratulations. It seems you'll be performing on Friday after all. The rehearsal continued, but everything had changed. Students who had barely noticed Sophia before came up to compliment her voice. Lily hugged her tightly, whispering, "I told you your talent would shine through." As the afternoon wound down, Sophia found Alexander waiting near the exit. "Thank you," she said simply, not knowing how else to express her gratitude. "Don't thank me," he replied. "This was all you. Your talent, your courage." He paused. "I grew up on the east side too, you know. 25 years ago I stood where you're standing, watching doors close because I didn't have the right connections or background." Sophia looked at him with new understanding. "Is that why you helped me?" "I helped create a fair opportunity. You did the rest," he smiled. "The world needs more authentic voices like yours, Sophia. Not just in music, but in every field. Remember that on Friday." Walking home that evening, Sophia felt like she was floating. She couldn't wait to tell her grandmother what had happened. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to truly believe that dreams could come true, not just in movies, but in real life. Even for girls from the east side who practice singing in their bathroom. Friday evening arrived with a buzz of excitement around Westridge High. The parking lot filled with cars, many from the wealthy west side of town, their polished surfaces gleaming under the streetlights. Parents, teachers, and community members streamed into the auditorium, programs in hand. Behind the stage in the small dressing room area, performers prepared for their moment in the spotlight. Some had brought professional makeup artists, parents who fussed over every detail. Others huddled in groups running through last-minute rehearsals or battling nerves. Sophia stood alone in a quiet corner, smoothing down the front of her dress. She had spent 3 late nights adding the final sequins, transforming the thrift store find into something that caught the light beautifully when she moved. It wasn't designer fashion like some of the other girls wore, but it was uniquely hers, each painstakingly attached sequin representing hours of work and hope. Her grandmother had insisted on leaving work early to help her get ready, carefully styling Sophia's hair and pinning the silver music note to her dress. "You look beautiful." "Michello," Rosa had whispered, her eyes shining with tears. "Like a star already." Now as Sophia waited backstage, those words gave her strength. The program had been rearranged, with her performance scheduled near the end, a coveted spot usually reserved for the most impressive acts. Ms. Winters swept through the backstage area, checking off names on her clipboard. When she reached Sophia, her smile remained professional but cool. "You're after Vincent's drum solo," she said briskly. "Be ready." Lily appeared at Sophia's side, resplendent in a formal gown. "You okay?" she asked. "You look a little pale." "Just nervous," Sophia admitted. "I've never performed for a crowd this big before." "You'll be amazing," Lily assured her. "Just like at rehearsal. Better, even." She peeked through the curtain. "Wow, it's packed out there. And guess who's sitting in the front row next to Principal Thompson? Your mystery millionaire," Sophia smiled. "He's not my millionaire." "Well, he's sure rooting for you, oh. And there are the industry scouts, 3 of them tonight, not just Dana." Lily looked back at Sophia with wide eyes. "This is major. They never send this many people to a high school show." Before Sophia could respond, the house lights dimmed and the audience quieted. Principal Thompson walked to center stage, his voice booming through the sound system as he welcomed everyone and thanked special guests. "And we're especially honored to have Mr. Alexander Reed with us tonight," he announced to polite applause. "Mr. Reed has generously committed to establishing an arts endowment fund for Westridge High, ensuring that talented students from all backgrounds can develop their gifts." The first performances passed in a blur as Sophia's nerves grew. She peeked from behind the curtain occasionally, watching the audience's reactions. The auditorium was indeed full, not a single empty seat to be found. Near the front, she could see her grandmother sitting proudly in the special seat Alexander had arranged for her, hands clasped tightly in her lap. "2 more before you," the student stage manager whispered, startling Sophia from her thoughts. She nodded, stepping back to take deep breaths. The backing track for her song was queued up and tested. There would be no accidents this time. Alexander had personally spoken to the sound technician. Vincent finished his drum solo to enthusiastic applause. As he exited the stage, he nodded to Sophia. "Knock 'em dead," he said, surprising her with his encouragement. "Now," the stage manager whispered, gently nudging her forward. The stage lights felt hotter and brighter than during rehearsals. Sophia walked to the center mark, blinking against the glare that made the audience appear as mere silhouettes beyond the first few rows. "Our next performer is Sophia Martinez," Principal Thompson announced, singing Rise Up. The backing track began, soft piano notes filling the silence. Sophia closed her eyes briefly, gathering herself. When she opened them, she found her grandmother in the audience and held that connection as she began to sing. The first verse flowed easily, her voice clear and strong despite her nerves. By the chorus, something magical happened. The boundary between her and the audience seemed to dissolve. She wasn't just performing for them. She was sharing something real, something that came from the deepest part of herself. As the song built toward its powerful crescendo, Sophia felt tears pricking behind her eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness or even happiness. They were simply the physical manifestation of pure emotion flowing through her. The final notes soared through the auditorium, held with perfect control before fading into silence. For a heartbeat, the audience remained completely still. Then, like a wave breaking, applause erupted. Not just polite clapping, but standing, cheering, a few people wiping away tears. Sophia's grandmother stood beaming, clapping until her hands must have hurt. Beside her, Alexander Reed was on his feet too, his face bright with something that looked like pride. Backstage, Sophia was met with high fives and hugs from the other performers. Even Ms. Winters managed a stiff nod of acknowledgement. "That was unbelievable," Lily said, squeezing Sophia's arm. "I had actual chills." The rest of the show continued, but the energy in the room had shifted. Sophia's performance had touched something genuine that lingered in the air. When all the performers returned to the stage for final bows, the audience's response was enthusiastic. But the loudest cheers came when Sophia stepped forward. As people began filing out afterward, Sophia found herself surrounded by well-wishers. She caught sight of her grandmother waiting patiently at the edge of the crowd, eyes shining with unshed tears. "Abuela!" Sophia broke free and rushed to hug her. "You came!" "Of course I came," Rosa said, holding her tight. "Nothing would have kept me away." "Ms. Martinez?" They turned to find Dana from Summit Records standing nearby, accompanied by 2 colleagues. "That was extraordinary," Dana said warmly. "Would you and your grandmother have time to talk? We'd love to discuss some possibilities with you." As Dana introduced her colleagues, Alexander approached. "I hope I'm not interrupting," he said. "Not at all," Dana replied. "In fact, I should thank you for the phone call. You were right about her talent." Alexander shook his head. "I just made sure people were listening." "The talent was always there." He turned to Sophia. "Congratulations. How does it feel?" "Unreal," she admitted. "Like I'm dreaming." "It's very real," he assured her. "And it's just the beginning." Over the next hour, seated in the now empty auditorium, Sophia and her grandmother listened as Dana outlined possibilities: recording sessions, vocal coaching, development deals. Nothing was guaranteed, but doors were definitely opening. "We'd need your guardian's permission." "Of course, since you're 17, Dana explained, looking at Rosa. Rosa asked practical questions about schedules, education, and contracts, her protective instincts clearly at work. "My granddaughter's talent is precious," she said firmly. "But so is her future." "I completely understand," Dana replied respectfully. "We believe in developing artists the right way. No exploitation, no shortcuts." As they talked, Principal Thompson approached with Ms. Winters reluctantly in tow. "Sophia," the principal said warmly, "what a performance. We're so proud to have such talent at Westridge." Ms. Winters nodded stiffly. "You did well," she managed, though the words clearly cost her. "Thank you," Sophia replied simply, choosing grace over grudges. Later that night, as Sophia and Rosa walked home under the stars, the events of the evening seemed to take on a dreamlike quality. "I still can't believe it happened," Sophia said softly. "I can," her grandmother replied. "Your parents would be so proud, mi cielo. Your mother especially." Sophia touched the silver pin on her dress, feeling a connection across time. "Do you think she would be?" "She's watching from heaven, bursting with pride," Rosa said with certainty. "Just like me, 2 years passed quickly." The small apartment on the east side still served as home base, though Sophia now split her time between school, the studio, and occasional small performances. True to his word, Alexander established an arts endowment fund at Westridge High, with specific provisions for underprivileged students. The fund provided instruments, lessons, and opportunities previously available only to those who could afford them. Ms. Winters still directed the drama department, though with notably less favoritism under the watchful eye of the endowment board, which Alexander chaired. The annual talent show now featured blind auditions, with performers evaluated solely on ability. On a warm spring afternoon, Sophia returned to her old high school, no longer a student, but a visiting mentor. Her first single had just been released, a song she'd written herself about believing in your own voice. It wasn't topping charts yet, but it was finding its audience, growing organically through listeners who connected with its authenticity. In the music room where she once dreamed of being heard, she now sat with students from both sides of town, sharing her story and listening to theirs. The most important thing, she told them, isn't becoming famous or making money. It's being true to your own voice. Sometimes people won't listen, sometimes doors will close. But if you keep singing your truth, eventually the right people will hear you. A girl in the back raised her hand shyly. Did you ever think about giving up? Sophia smiled, remembering the list of names that once didn't include hers, the backing track cut short, the years of practicing in a tiny bathroom. Almost, she admitted, but then someone believed in me, and that helped me believe in myself again. She looked around at the circle of young faces. Sometimes that's all it takes, one person who truly sees you, and sometimes that person needs to be you.